What's going on? By looking here. Back with another video. So it's gonna be a tier list video, kind of what I think is the best decks. You know, going from tier 0, absolutely godly, to why are we even trying? Before we go ahead and get this started, real appreciate if you can go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the bell. It's insanely appreciated. You know, supports the channel, helps us get where we need to go. As well as, if you can, I'll be going ahead and linking my Twitch account. I just made it. No clue when we're going to start streaming. Probably next week, most likely. I just want to make sure I get everything set up with it before I go ahead and start really doing it. But go ahead and hit follow it. It's really appreciated, you know, and it helps us get, you know, expanded. But yeah, so I have just about all the best decks. Best. I just have all the best decks right here. And we're going to go ahead and go through them real quick. So, first thing we have Dino. So, I'm like on the edge of Dino between tier 1 and tier 2. Because it's a really good deck. Like, Miscellaneous makes this deck insane. But is it tier 1 insane? Like, Miscellaneous just negates. Well, it doesn't negate, but it feels like it just negates all your hand traps. Negates the board you make. Like, it's crazy. The only thing that really stops it's Herald. And stop is a loose term because now, like, they just normal summon Overraptor, effect send Giant Rex, effect a Giant Rex, summon itself out. Then after that, they just go ahead and beat into it. And then after that, if you don't bounce something, they make Dolka. And then you're just like, oh, well, that's cool, I guess. But yeah, I'm going to say tier 1 because this deck is definitely still a threat. It kills way too easily. You know, Conductor just sometimes outs an entire board on himself. Then we go ahead and have BA. BA is definitely one of the decks that has been around for way too fucking long. I love this deck personally, but it has been around for way too long. It's got so much great support, and what's worse is the support's better in other decks. Like, you know, like Phantom Knight. Shirabini was in an FTK, Phantom Knight deck. It's in a bunch of other stuff. I don't think the power it holds is definitely anywhere near where it used to be. I think it's more of an engine, unfortunately, now. Like, you'll see Trap BA, but it's not really doing much if it's doing stuff. Like, yeah. So it's going to go in the Rogue tier. I'm definitely, you know, I really wish I could put it higher because it's one of my favorite decks. But it's just not as good as it used to be. Then we have Madolche. Definitely a really good Rogue deck. You know, it kills really easily. It gets to play really good going second cards and, you know, just plays through boards relatively well. Unfortunately, it's just not as consistent. It can't put up boards, so, you know, best thing you're getting maybe is like a negate with some spins, but as we all know, that's usually not enough. But this deck is definitely better as a going second deck, and, you know, it proves that. But it's going to go in the Rogue tier because it, for one, just doesn't see enough play, and even if it did, you know, it's not going to see too much success, unfortunately. But yeah. Then for tier 2, we have Orcus. So I think this deck is definitely insane. Still, it can still put up crazy boards and stuff like that. Doesn't see a lot of play because there's just better decks to play, unfortunately. You know, we have like Infernoble, Eldritch, Invoked, Zoo. There's a bunch of this stuff. But I think this deck can really go with, you know, everything. You know, you can make a board of, what was it? Effect to send off Dingirsu, a negate with Galatea, Rusty, Dragoon, and then sometimes an IP. I'm not too familiar with the deck for its ending boards as of right now because we got Rusty back, but I know it's definitely still crazy. And it's definitely one of the better decks to play if you're looking to play like a Rogue tier 2 deck, something like that. Then we have Appliancers. For one, tier 0, absolutely godly. This deck is insane. Don't even you can at me, and I'll 1v1 you. This deck's a godly. Machine Dupe is game. We're setting up IP, Dragoon, Fog Blades, Rusty, all that good stuff. And look at them. They're adorable. Do you not see, look at him? He plugs into the wall. That's crazy. That's absolutely broken. And then we have Virtual World. It's going straight to tier 1. I can say that much. You know, ever since this deck came out, it's just been insane. Just came out and just took shit over. Like, I have nothing else to say. It makes VFD like it's nothing. It makes 2 VFDs like it's nothing. Most boards end on VFD trap card Macrocosmos for the field, and that for a lot of the decks just can't even beat the VFD by itself. And then they just kill you next turn. You're like, oh, well, I guess I just lose, you know? Like, I even Nibiru the deck when they made VFD, and they just made another VFD. This deck's crazy. All the cards essentially get other cards, which is really good. You're always able to search a card, which is insane, basically, because, you know, you can target a monster with any of the ones in hand, send the spell, or target the trap, send the spell. Lulu adds one. The deck is so crazy, and you get to play good cards like not Avarice, Jesus. Desires, Tactics, all that good stuff. This deck is so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to playing it myself, but I think I'm going to keep playing Dragon Link until it gets rained into the dirt. Then we have, you know, Subterror. I think it's definitely one of the better rogue decks, but a bunch of it has too many consistency issues. It has a lot of issues with staying in the game. Once you clear the board, once this deck is done, it's a control deck. And, you know, it's easy for this deck to lose control considering you have maybe one negate with some trap cards followed up. But most of the best decks can just play through those trap cards without an issue. And that's why I don't think it's good enough to really be in the tier 2 as of right now. I think when the meta gets a little bit slower, this deck will see a lot more play. But, yeah, like, there's just not really enough presence. This is definitely good. And I hate saying this, but I really wish this deck was better. We're probably not going to use this one, but this is one of the rogue decks. It's a cheaper deck. You can see minor success, but no, it's going here. I lied. It's a pretty cheap deck, but you can see minor success in it because, you know, the domain lock is still really good. You know, Stormforth Erebus is insane. Stormforth Ether on your opponent's turn is still really good. Summoning Kraz, pop, pop, bam, they're gone. They're dead. Yeah. That's really all I have to say about it. It's not that good of a deck because it loses to too many hand traps, and that's why I'm not exactly a fan of it myself. So, yeah. Next we have Shaddolls. I think it's a really good tier 2 deck, especially when you know, you combine it with you know, Dogmateca and Alistair decks, and, you know, the deck just becomes really crazy. You know, I was playing against it. I was testing the Eldritch Alistair deck. I had fun, but he had more fun. He just kept summoning windows, and I just kept losing. I could not out every single window. Literally, I had 2 Golden Lords in the grave at one moment. He just banished them both with Aerial, and I was like, well, I just fucking lose. But the deck is super fun. Shadow Fusion is still disgusting. Schism is definitely really crazy. A Disruption to kill a Dark Monster or a Light Monster, whatever you want to summon, really. And then you also get to send one, and then you get a Window Out, Construct, whatever you want, Apocalone. Anything, you know. And then, of course, tier 0, absolutely godly. UA, best deck in the format, always the best deck, never not the best deck. If it's not the best deck, it is the best deck still. It doesn't fucking matter. You hear me? You see this? Dunker, Jersey, game. Double piercing, double damage, piercing, destroy a card, twice, game. It's lethal. You're not surviving. I'm hitting you for 6k with one fucking attack. And then I'm going to do it again, too. And then we have Phantom Knight. Definitely one of the more fun decks. It's going to be a lot better post-ban list. Because I'm sure they're going to murder most of the decks that are going to be on this list. Not really. They're probably just going to murder Dragon Link and the Infernoble deck. Hopefully they do. If they don't, I'm going to be like, what is going on, Konami? But yeah, it puts up it can put up an Appaloosa before you on like the 4th or 5th summon, I believe. I'd have to double check. But it puts up an Appaloosa, so it's able to play around Nibiru, which is really nice. But the boards that this deck can just put up, just off a tour guide alone, really any 2 ways to see a monster is just so crazy. Like, it baffles me what this deck can do, and the new support was definitely what it needed to really be doing more, and I'm really happy that this deck did get more support. In all honesty, deck was super crazy, and it's definitely good now. It's definitely gonna be insane post the list. And then we have Prank Kids, right in the tier 2 column as well. This deck is just so good right now. The Link one made the deck crazy. Unfortunately, it's just a little more susceptible to hand traps. You know, an Ash really hurts. A singular Ash hurts. Really, just any negate on the first summon does hurt. If they don't draw an extender, it's almost lethal. And, you know, we play 1,000 ways to see a monster, but even with polys, you know, you have to draw more Prank Kids or poly Prank Kid and a Prank Kid, or else you're just going to get Dougied on. Unfortunately, it can't really keep up with decks like Infernoble and Dragon Link. If they go first, it's just an auto loss for this deck most of the time. Even though they play a bunch of hand traps, both decks excel at playing through said hand traps, and that's the thing. So, you know, it's like, yeah. And then we have Mystic Mine down in the bottom. Fuck Mystic Mine. I hate that card. It shouldn't be banned because the card's... you have to respect the card, but I will not respect a player that plays the deck. Then we have Infernoble. Hand loop for 5 is crazy. Hand loop for 3, then you have a negate for their other 2 cards, and a pop for another one. They're not playing. I'm sorry. This deck needs to get hit. It's definitely way too crazy. I don't care if the stuff just came out. Fuck Infernoble. All my homies hate Infernoble. We hate the deck. Alistair variants, you know, they're right in tier 2. Like, they're powerful. Don't get me wrong, you know, but it's just not as powerful as, you know, VFD, Macrocosmos, Pop. You know, and the Pop can protect the VFD too. It's crazy. But, you know, being able to have play with the Eldritch deck and playing with the Dogmateca cards really gives this deck the boost that it needed, so it's not just Mech of a Pass. And you can literally, you can have like an ending board of like Eldritch, Mechaba, Schism set to summon Winda, and like an Ecclesia with a Punishment and a Dogmateca guy in hand. And you can even play Dragoon if you wanted to. Like, this deck is definitely one of the better choices if you're looking to play like a tier 2 deck. I can say that much. Then we have Eldritch right in the tier 2. Same thing. It gets outshined by, you know, these decks. That's really all it is. It just gets outshined, unfortunately. Deck's definitely really good. You know, it's one of the best control decks we have right now, in all honesty. And it's a splashable deck into the Alistair or just the Dogmateca stuff. You can play rocket cards. Really insane. And I think it's going to be one of the best decks to play come the post list. Yeah. And then we have Zoo. So, Zoo is definitely really good. Alright, we're... like, this is going in the rogue tier. I'm sorry. I can't... It's definitely... Orcus is definitely good, but I just don't think it competes with all these other decks, you know? But then we have Zoo. I don't think it's a tier 1 deck for the purpose of I don't draw a Zoo, I lose. And, you know, in theory, you know, you're going to draw one, but the deck has an issue of recursion because Broad Bull's gone, you know. Pot of Avarice is really good for the deck, and you can play Pot of Desires as well because most of your good cards are 3-ofs. You know, you banish a Rat or a Barrage, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, the deck is and the deck isn't that susceptible to hand traps, but, you know, a Gamma or a Nibiru really hurts this deck, you know. But being able to put Megaclops up is what really makes it be able to compete. Because almost none of these decks, except for Virtual World and the Ancient Cloak, Jesus, Phantom Knight deck, can really only deal with it because they're the only one that plays XYZs. You know, other than that, like, Dragon Link isn't really dealing with it, unfortunately, unless if they open Imperm, Droplet, something like that. But most of the time, you know, we're not opening it. But yeah, deck is solid. Having 3 Dryden in the form of Dryden 2 Zeus is really good right now. Zeus definitely gave this deck a really big push. And same thing with Eldritch. Post list, it's going to be a really crazy deck. Dragon Link, we all know what Dragon Link does. It's nothing new. Wipes all these decks out here in the water. Has a really good matchup versus all these if it goes first. Except for these 2 decks. These 2 decks just kill everything. You know, you can't beat Appliance or a UA. We've already accepted our defeat once we go against an Appliance or a UA player. Then we have, you know, Altergeist and Salad. Both very good decks. Unfortunately, they just get outshined, same by all these other decks. You know, Multi-Faker Imperm is still crazy, but I feel like it has a similar issue to Zoo, where recursion becomes a problem, especially when you're playing through negates and stuff like that, since it's a heavy trap-based deck, you know. It's not exactly easy for the deck to deal with, unfortunately. And that's just why I think it's going to be in the rogue tier. And then we have Salad. Salad's always going to be there. It's like the BA, you know? Let's put them next to each other. It's like the BA, you know. The deck has insanely good recovery, which is why I do like it. You know, it always gets the Gazelle back. And it has a really easy OTK in the form of Access Kotaku with the whatever thing that makes it attack twice. But unfortunately, it has difficulty playing through boards. It auto loses to the Buster Lock, even though a lot of these decks do. Unfortunately, but you know, it just auto loses to the Buster Lock, which a bunch of decks can put up easily. Like Appliancers do it, you know, you're not out in that. There's a Dragoon and an IP there. What are you doing? Nothing, that's what. But in all seriousness, I think this is definitely one of the better rogue decks to play. It's definitely really cheap too. So if you're looking to pick up a good deck that, you know, isn't a lot, I highly recommend this. But yeah, that's my tier list. If you disagree with anything except for these two, then that's fine. You know, this is just what I think. I think these are definitely the best decks to play. Dino, I want to say like 1.5 though, because I don't know. It just it's not like scary like these other two, but yeah. But if you did enjoy the video, go ahead and hit a like. It's really appreciated. And if, like I said, if you have any changes, go ahead and comment. Let me know what you think. You know, I should change. But yeah, take it easy.